Decorum is something that has existed from the beginning pretty much of legislative bodies. And so its purpose is to provide some processes in which things stay orderly, relationships stay in a position where we can continue to work together in an environment that we know is going to have a lot of disagreements on things, and they're there to actually work through some of those things together. So decorum plays a role in just providing what I would call a little bit of space, whether it's actual space or it's a sense of separation, where maybe we could put it in today's terms, it's not, to try to make things not that personal. It's not personal. I think it does influence the quality of the debate because the debate stays focused on the issues, not the person who's making the debate. So, for example, one of the rules of decorum does have to do when we're on the floor and we're in debate, how we address one another. So, when we are in our general sessions on the floor, we don't address each other by name, like Representative Lawley, Representative whoever. And what we do is we find another way to relate or identify to that person. So again, there's a separation between that person individually and the argument they're making. It's the kind of idea behind it. So I would address another legislator, for example, by saying the good representative who just spoke, maybe, or I could even say the good representative from District 16. I use something very general that it refers to his position, but not the person. So, or sometimes we come up with creative ones for fun, like the good country lawyer, or say the good representative from over the mountain from me, the good representative from the land of the camels, which refers to Campbell County, Wyoming, or things like that. So it is actually kind of fun, that part of it. And so it was really a little bit hard for me to adjust to that because I was used to decorum, but it was the decorum of a courtroom where we do address people by name, other attorneys by name. And I was always during the sessions, one of my greatest fears that I would refer to the speaker as the judge or your honor, because that's common within the decorum of courtrooms. But just idea that I wouldn't just, when debating someone, just refer to them by name was very unnatural for me at the beginning. And but over time, I got better at it. And I saw the value in it. And so there are other rules of decorum, but they all have the same goal, really, of how do we conduct ourselves in a way that continues to show respect and leaves space for these disagreements that are not personalized. And they're really about the issues that we're dealing with for the people of Wyoming. The consequences of not following decorum can start with anything as simple as being called down by the chair and be ruled out of order and explain the reason, which rule of decorum have you violated. And so usually, in my experience so far, that takes care of it. That will kind of end it. From time to time, a legislator may wish to press the chair on their ruling because they feel strongly about it, or they feel that what they may have come to the edge but didn't really fly in the face of the rule of decorum. So we can sometimes have a little discussion about that. If there's some repeated offenses, there are other options that leadership has in terms of some disciplinary action, and that can be anything from, a visit to the speaker's office to some kind of more formal action for continued abuse of the rules of decorum. So, the decorum also, I'll just say this, really provides, again, some just almost common sense things. We used to call them in the day polite things. But for example, when another speaker is speaking, you do not interrupt. You don't make comments like that's not true, or I don't believe that, or that. So it's, again, you're seeing a sort of dignity that the rules try to bring to the body and to the process. And so again, as a matter of the value of decorum. It is very challenging because the more polarized things become, the more personal people can feel about that. Because they're typically issues everyone on either side feel very, very passionate about. And so the rules are like safeguards, or like bumper bowling, those bumpers when you do bumper bowling, they really set some boundaries, and they really become most important when things are most heated, when we are talking passionately about issues where either side of that issue, or the various sides sometimes of that issue, feel very passionately. And in the midst of that and of vigorous debate, things can happen. People can get upset. So it really is challenging. But I would argue that it is in those very times that the rules mean the most, that the rules are the most valuable for the state of Wyoming, because in the end, the rules create an environment where the work of the people can be done in our state legislature. And it requires us to put aside self to some degree, emotions and self-interest, and follow the rules of decorum so that we can attend to the business. I think the role that the constituents can play is an important role. What they can do in this situation is they can understand the rules, have some understanding of their value, and then encourage their own legislators to follow those rules. And that helps to know that that your constituency understands the rules and they want you to follow those rules. Again, because these issues aren't just heated on the floor, they're heated out in our communities as well. Yeah. And so it is very easy for constituents to have a passion about something, and it's genuine, and they feel deeply about the issue, and they want their legislator to express that deep feeling they have in the way that they interact with that issue in the legislature. So sometimes that can fly in the face, really, of the rules of decorum, and maybe create some confusion for constituents, like maybe their representative wasn't passionate enough about that on the floor, but maybe not understanding that some of those ways they might have expected in just a normal setting might violate the rules of decorum. So I think there's a role on both sides for legislators to educate their constituencies about the rules. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm glad we're having this conversation about how valuable they are. They've worked for centuries, and they do play a role in causing us to focus our time in constructive debate about these issues that matter so much to the Wyoming people. And the more our constituents understand that on those issues they're most passionate about, the more they'll understand why we will approach it the way we do, typically on the floor or in a committee meeting. Well, it's kind of one of those things that's a little bit caught as much as taught. Certainly doing things like we're doing now is really helpful, I think, for anyone out there to understand this is a unique world that has a unique set of rules and guidelines. And so not everybody would know about that or understand why they might exist. And even those that start tuning in sometimes wonder, I'll get questions about why are we doing it that way? And that always gives me an opportunity. Those questions open up doors to explain, well, we have these rules and this is why we do them and this is the benefit of those rules. But there wouldn't be any other way to really just know about that. There were some of them I knew about before I went to the legislature, but there were others I did not know about. And so I think sometimes it's just those situations you have that opportunity to speak to it because of a question specifically that's asked. And sometimes you have to find more indirect opportunities to just talk about my experience, for example, when I was there. And as I told you a little bit earlier, that, me discovering this idea that I couldn't just call a representative by their title. I had to do it a different way. I also, in that regard, the rule also extends to things like the governor. I can't refer to the governor, even by, say, the governor. I can say that the chief executive of our state. So I have to find a different way to say it, again, to somewhat depersonalize it. Or we don't refer to, the Senate. We say the chamber down the hall, for example, would be a way to refer to the Senate. So sometimes when people ask me some things that were the most kind of confusing or strange to me when I, as my first term, I talk about that. Like, that was really kind of hard to get used to. But I began to understand and see the value of it over time.